Welcome to Queer Conversation. In the virtual studio with me today is Lauren Anderson and Meegan May. We just produced a very quirky, unusual podcast series called the Starship Q Star. It launched a couple of weeks ago. It's a queer science fiction comedy show. Give us an overview and start. How did this come about?
Well, it was, we first came up with the idea during lockdown a couple of years ago when everyone and their dog was making a podcast because it seemed like an easy thing to do during lockdown. And we're massive sci-fi nerds and love comedy, so we wanted to do something in that space. So it's basically about a tone-deaf space agency sending the first all non-men crew to Mars after a few scandals that they have done. So it's basically a PR mission. Yeah. And while they're on this journey, they land at Mars and find out that everyone's abandoned the base except for one man. And then they find out Earth has been destroyed. So they decide to get on their spaceship and explore the universe.
Yeah, find a new home.
Oh, and the two captains, the space agency had two co-captains, and the two captains are ex-girlfriends as well to make it more complicated.
Yeah, and we'd also seen an article that was about NASA wanting to take all women to space because they thought they wouldn't have sex and distract each other, which we thought was absolutely hilarious because that would, to us, would just be the most drama-filled, ridiculous mission possible. So that was also a big influence for us.
Paul, you do have a trailer which we can listen to.
It's day 12 and we, the last 6 humans in the universe, can only do one thing. Use the faster-than-light engine to scour the vast unknown reaches of space in search of a new home. How friggin' cool is that?
Have you ever wondered what would happen if Star Trek and the L Word had a weird, hilarious baby?
Lesbians have broken up and become best friends since time immemorial. So there's no reason we can't be best co-captains instead.
Starship Q Star, a comedy fiction podcast about two polar opposites, Aurelia and Sim, co-captains of a starship and ex-girlfriends.
You're 1/6 of the entire human population and we're stuck in space together forever.
Classic queer breakup. When Earth is mysteriously destroyed, the broken up Aurelia and Sim must work together to lead their very queer crew.
And you're most excited about the new frontier of space medicine?
Nah, Captain, that'd be an alien encounter of a sexual kind.
Crew reports show that everyone needs to toughen up.
I feel so amazing and so anxious, but mostly amazing.
And joined by the last man in the universe.
Yay, we're all back together again.
The Starship Q Star is on a journey across the galaxy in search of a new home.
Do you think that's an eye or a butthole? Definitely a butthole.
Maybe don't put your arm in... Too late.
It pollinated over me. What an honour.
Staring into each other's eyes and naming nebulas is not foreplay.
Well, thank you, Sim. Now I'm turned on.
Dusty, mate, now would be a great time for some of that 100% best astronaut pilot bullshit.
Let's go to war!
Featuring some of Australia's best comedic and acting talent, Starship Q Star is launching soon where all good podcasts are found.
Lesbian, Jesus, that was close.
So that sounded like heaps of fun, but both of you have got a background in writing, in theater writing, in comedy. You have won awards. How did you find the difference in writing for podcast?
Yeah, well, why we did audio drama first, like we did that because we wanted to do something that was close to a TV sitcom in form, I suppose. So we wanted something that was serialized, multiple episodes, and we wanted also something that could go everywhere. So audio drama is a really accessible platform. It's free. We can make it free. So our show is free to listen to. and it can go all over the world. Also, we wanted to do something that we could control the tone, the content, and the style of. And so by doing it in audio drama, we had absolute say over what we were doing and how we were doing it, which was really, really, really fun. So we wanted them to be all queer. We wanted them to be really funny. We wanted them to be really stupid as well. Like, we really like silly comedy. And we didn't want the stories necessarily to be all about like coming out and those sort of typical storylines that maybe more mainstream broadcasters like. We wanted it to be about just people being together, and they're all queer, they're all very sexual still, and the problems they have come from themselves. And if they're not together, it's not because they're not out or anything like that. It's because they've done something stupid and they have to try and work it out between each other.
If you listen to it, you really understand there is a really fantastic production quality behind it. Like, it's not an easy thing that you just sit in your lounge room and you're mucking around. Like, you know, the sound effects you're using, it cannot be easy.
One of the things they teach you in screenwriting and theatre writing is, you know, you want to show things, not tell it in exposition or in that kind of thing. So learning to have to get information out through dialogue in a more expositionary way that doesn't sound clunky, and using just audio, it really was a huge learning curve for us. And we had to have read-throughs and you know, give it to people to see if it made sense to them before we sort of went into production, to make sure it made sense. And then it was about surrounding ourselves with some really talented people in the audio sphere. Our sound designer, Darius Kedros, who has worked in theatre, we worked a lot with him to sort of find the sound of it and make sure it sounded really good.
Yeah, and he was really particular, I suppose. Like, he really wanted it to be a fully fleshed out world, which is what we wanted to. So he was also pushing. Like, we were just really lucky to find him because he wanted it to be as good as we did. So he went the extra mile and made sure that it sounded as full and as big as a real universe as we wanted it to be. So we felt very fortunate to be able to work with him.
Yeah, and because we had so many great theatre actors and comedians, we wanted to record it all together. So we had like a studio, and we had one microphone, and we would sort of build the almost the sets in place, so they would stand where they would on the bridge to make it sort of that more immersive kind of sound. And we could have that energy of those actors in the room feeding off each other. So it was really fun.
Kind of like an old school radio play.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It's really important to have that energy, isn't it? Like, it would have been really hard to have to record by yourself at home if COVID lockdown. I mean, you're in Melbourne, is that right? So you had a lot of lockdowns, and that would have been tempting to do. But at that stage, throughout the lockdowns, you were actually just writing it.
Yeah, I mean, we did consider recording it separately, and I think that was the initial plan. But by the time we spent a long time, we took our time developing the scripts and the story, because that was something we really wanted to nail. And by the time we'd done that, we had one lockdown lift, so we were all able to get the crew, or the cast together, to do a read-through. But once we had that read-through, we really did know that we wanted to hold out for our dream goal, which was to record all together, because once we had them all together, we could see the energy, we could see the magic that was between them. So we didn't want to break them up. So we elected to wait through the next lockdown to record. So it dragged it out, but we feel that it's certainly worthwhile. And it was so much fun to record with everyone. So we're really glad to have done that.
How long did it take from initial idea to the final product?
Yeah, we had the initial idea in 2020, and then we started applying for funding towards the end of that year. And then most of 2021 was taken up with writing the scripts. We had a few delays. Lauren works in TV and went away for 4 months in that time to sort of work on other shows. And once she was back, sort of by the end of early 2022, we were ready to start doing those read-throughs. And then we had a couple of COVID-related delays. We had COVID, then our cast got COVID right before we started recording. So that sort of pushed our dates out again, and we ended up recording in July 2022. And then from then we've
been doing post.
I mean, and Lauren had another job overseas again, so that slowed us down. But, yeah, so it's been about 2 years all up with a few breaks in between. But we think we've created something that sounds like just as good as podcasts like from the BBC or other big networks. And, it's doing pretty well. So, but, we've had we can sort of see the stats all over the world, and there's, so many countries have been listening. Like we've got our biggest country is the United States, and the UK. I think we're going well in the charts there too.
Canada is doing well. But we're also like seeing people listening in the UAE and Russia as well. So that's been really special to realise that we are reaching people in spaces that might not get access to much queer content. So and that's something I'd never really thought about. So it's been really, really great to have that as another outcome.
And Meegan, you were the computer in the. So how do you stop being the computer?
She was literally in the bathroom this morning doing the computer voice. So I could hear her. I was like, it's never going to stop.
But, yeah, we sort of did that, like, as much as I just really wanted to be in it because, I don't know, it would be fun. It was really fun. We also did that kind of like, just in case there were any plot holes or things that didn't make sense, I could do a little bit of the computer voice to explain exposition if we needed to. Luckily, we haven't really had to do that. But, yeah, it was fun. I would sort of emulate this kind of Siri voice, and then we'd put like a filter on it to make it sound like it's coming out of the ship. But it would some of that inflection is in the performance because we've heard those kind of AI voices so much.
Yeah, it actually was like there was definitely more of a performance in it than maybe you would think, that like you would have to be careful about how much you're breathing because you don't want to hear a computer breathing, and you don't want to have too much emotion, but also our computer is a bit sassy and she can be a bit of a bitch sometimes, particularly toward like a particular character. They have a bit of like tension. So it was important to make, how like sometimes you get Siri on your phone or your phone AI, and they can be kind of like, are you having a go at they can feel a bit cheeky. So we really wanted that feeling about the computer. So it was a balance to strike, but them being a neutral sort of element, but also they can be kind of sassy and a little bit of a bitch. So, yeah.
You did achieve that because, I mean, I've only watched the first couple of episodes, and the voice that stood out for me, or the character, put it that way, was the computer.
Oh, great.
Congratulations, babe.
My first big acting gig.
You describe on your website what a Q Star is, because you must have had a reason why you named your podcast Starship Q Star. Explain to the audience what Q Star stands for.
Well, the Q is like a nod, obviously, to the very queer crew, but it's actually also it's similar to a black hole, apparently, but it's known as a grey hole, which we thought was kind of funny. And so it sort of suits, ticks both boxes for us. So,
and how can people support this podcast?
You can go on, if you go on Apple Podcasts and just search Starship Q Star, or Spotify, any of the major podcast providers we are hosted on. You can also just go to our website, which is starshipqstar.com, and you can find all the information about us and the show, and also the full list of where you can listen as well.
What are your top 3 or 2 podcasts that you're listening to at the moment?
There's a lot out at the moment. My current favourite one is one called Oblivity, which is a UK podcast about, it's also about space, because I like space, and it's also really, really goofy, but it's very funny. So really enjoying that one.
And I've I'm a bit, another nerd podcast recommendation is there was a Doctor Who podcast which is called Doctor Who Redacted, which was about some people that had started a podcast about these weird happenings about Doctor Who, this doctor character, and it's really diverse, really really great, really well done. So listen to that too.
Well, thank you so much for joining Queer Conversations today and sharing your new podcast that has just come out.
Thank you so much. Thank you.